For a few years, my mom and dad had this weekly ritual, which was they would go to a fairly nice restaurant and then they would go and see a movie. And if you do that literally every single week for several years, you end up watching most of the movies that come out. They would go and see practically everything. There were a couple of genres they stayed away from, but for the most part, they saw everything. It was rare that they would come home and both of them agree on how entertaining a movie was because they had different taste. They should. It's good to have different taste in a relationship. But one movie that they came home both ranting about was a movie that was one of these big budget Tom Cruise action science fiction flicks. It was called Edge of Tomorrow when it was in the theater, which turned out to be some really bad branding for it because they sunk huge amounts of money into this movie. They were planning a sequel before the movie ended, or before they had released the movie, and I find it fascinating because this particular film bombed at the box office and uncharacteristic of the media empires that are media empires. Whoever the studio was decided that they were going to rebrand it because they decided that branding was the issue, and it got released onto DVD under the title Live, Die, Repeat, which is also a terrible title. But at least it has something to do with the themes in the movie a little bit more than Edge of Tomorrow. Although Edge of Tomorrow does in a poetical way. But I guess maybe the demographic that they were searching for didn't care for the poetry. The lesson, though, in my opinion, to be gained from the whole thing was that the formula for making a good action movie, I think, has more to do with how much I care about the characters than about the action in it. I'm reading a book. I started reading a book, which I'll probably try and forge through because I've heard good things about it, called The Way of Kings. Brandon Sanderson. Sanderson? I don't care. Doesn't matter. Way of Kings. Brandon Sanderson, I think. And starts out kind of compellingly with this really great conversation between some characters who just sort of like they're having an emotional experience and they're talking about it, and you're beginning to become invested in these characters. But that's in a short prologue. But the first, which I tend to dismiss as the beginning of a book, which is sort of my policy, because I just feel like if it was important enough to be the first chapter, then you're going to make it the first chapter, so don't call it a prologue. That's just how I feel about things. So when the first chapter started, there was this long sequence that it was a brief explanation of a party and then a long fight scene that I haven't forged my way through yet because it's like an hour long. I don't care. Here's the thing. This is the problem, is that the action is being prosecuted by a character who I don't know if he's the good guy or the bad guy, but I don't really care about him yet, upon people who I don't know if they're the good guys or the bad guys, but I don't really care about them yet. There's just no context to make me feel like it matters what these people are doing. Tom Cruise is a better actor than anybody gives him credit for. He's not a great actor, but he's a better actor than anybody. I mean, he's been doing it for a million years. He can't have never learned how to act in order to and stayed in the industry as long as he has. And the script for this film it was blunt, but that kind of worked for a science fiction war film. I mean, you gotta have kind of a blunt script in order to move through the world building quickly enough that we can get where we're going, yeah. The combination, though, of how they decided to represent his character and the particular way they decided to write the script got you real invested in the human beings involved really quickly, right? And that was kind of the theme of the main theme of the whole thing was that we need to learn how to be invested in each other in order to like know what to fight for, right? I mean, that's a little corny, but it kind of worked as a theme for a big action flick. I mean, I just feel like that's a good lesson for anybody who's writing action flicks to bear in mind that. But yes, we go and see action flicks just for the big explosions and everything, but we remember action flicks if we care about those big, that's the problem with the Expendables. Nobody cared. It was the most expendable film ever. We don't care about them, but we did care about John and Sarah Connor. That's why Terminator worked. I mean, they didn't seem like nice people, but we cared what happened to them. But we didn't care about any of the bodybuilders in Predator. The reason we remember that one was because it was so cunning. It wasn't because it was so intelligent. Edge of Tomorrow / Live, Die, Repeat, which is based on a good book, by the way. Short one, but a good one. Figured out that balance. Figured out how to incorporate a cornball little theme like how do we learn how to care about each other into a big, flashy, silly action film. And it has a good sense of humor, which is kind of waning, I feel like, these days. Everything's taking itself too seriously. Gone. This is the kind of action film that fits right into the kind of like the 1980s, late 1970s, 1980s, early 1990s sort of action films that sort of like just pulpy, didn't take themselves too seriously, just had a good time kind of thing, right? But at the same time, this Edge of Tomorrow / Live, Die, Repeat raised itself above those action films by having kind of a soul. And I think that's impressive.